The United Nations says it's not possible to create safe zones in Gaza Strip. World Food Programme stops operations in Houthi-run areas due to funding crisis and a lack of agreement with rebel militia. United Nations panel of experts accuses a senior Houthi official of torturing prisoners. More than 150 Palestinians were killed in a new massacre committed by the Israeli occupation in Jabalia camp northern Gaza. Meanwhile, the Israeli forces were encircling Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, battling Hamas militant through streets and buildings in some of the most intense combat the 2 months war. More on this story is within this report.
The UN issued a warning stating that in the midst of Israel's bombing assault, it is difficult to establish so-called safe zones inside the Gaza Strip, where civilians can escape. According to the Health Ministry in Gaza, the IOF has killed more than 15,000 people in the Gaza Strip. UNICEF spokesperson James Elger said that the sections of Gaza that Israel had declared safe did not even come close to meeting basic needs, adding that a lack of shelter and sanitation has led to outbreak of diseases. He added that a safe zone is one where you can ensure that people have access to food, water, medicine, and shelter. According to a World Health Organization official in Gaza, the situation is escalating by the hour as Israel bombing intensifies in the Palestinian enclaves south, particularly the cities of Khan Yunis and Rafah. He noted that humanitarian aid was way too little and that WHO was profoundly concerned about the health system's vulnerability in the densely populated enclave. Thomas White, Director of Affairs at the UN Palestinian Agency in Gaza, stated that more than 600,000 people have been ordered and forced to flee due to the Israeli bombing. Israeli forces carried out air and artillery bombardments near Khan Yunis and on neighboring Rafah at the southern end of the strip. The night of the bombing left dozens killed in the Gaza Strip. The bombing also killed 24 people in a school housing displaced people in Khan Yunis. The death toll of the Israeli bombing of the Gaza Strip since October 7 had risen to 15,523 people, 70% of whom were women and children. According to the United Nations, an estimated 1.8 million of the territory's 2.3 million population are internally displaced. What is happening in Gaza at the moment is prohibited by the international law. Indiscriminate attacks are prohibited, and all parties to an armed conflict are required to distinguish between military targets, civilians, and civilian objects. Deploying explosive weapons in densely populated civilian areas constitutes indiscriminate attacks, and direct attacks on civilians or civilian object constitutes war crimes.
قصف إشي مرعب كان بالأول. طلعنا من الدار رحنا على المدارس، قعدنا حوالي فيها أسبوع. رموا المناشير قالوا اتجهوا إلى الجنوب. طلعنا قاعدين احنا هنا في خيم، وفروا لنا حنفيات، صرنا نروح نعبي كل يوم، نعبي القلن كل أسبوعين 3 لما نتحمم. أنا بعاني من مرض اسمه روماتويد مفاجئ. في أي لحظة رجلي بتصير توجعني. أخوي مصطفى عمره 7 سنين هو بيعاني من مرض السرطان. علاجي أنا وأنا في غزة كنت بأخده، بس الحين ما باخدوش. أخويا بياخد الدواء. ما كانتش الخيمة تبعتنا زي هيك، حطينا بس شراشف بالأول، بعد هيك مطرت الدنيا. الليل اللي سيلت علينا رحنا شاردنا عند جارنا هنا، كانت تنقط علينا في الليل. ضلينا قاعدين عنده لما شقشقت الصبح، بعدك طلعنا نظبط الخيمة. اشتقت انه نرجع على دارنا ونروح نلعب ونرجع لقرايتنا. نفسي الحرب تخلص، نفسي كل شيء ترجع لأمورها، نلعب في المنتزه مثلا، نرجع. اشتقنا يا شيخ، اشتقنا.
A diplomatic source revealed that the number of Yemeni stranded in Gaza Strip reaches 58 people. The source said 24 of them were husbands of Palestinian women, Yemeni wives of Palestinian men, and children of Yemeni citizens. The source indicated that the Yemeni Ministry of Foreign Affairs asked the Jordanian Foreign Ministry to intervene and communicate with the Israeli occupation authorities regarding the evacuation of Yemeni citizens from the Gaza Strip. The White House said America may form a naval task force to escort commercial ships in the Red Sea. The step comes after 3 ships were hit by missiles fired by the Iranian-backed Houthis. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said America is in active talks with allies about establishing this force, although nothing has been finalized, and he described this as a normal response to the missile strike. The U.S. Special Envoy to Yemen, Tim Lenderking, begins a Gulf tour this week. The tour aims to supporting efforts to end the conflict in Yemen and regional coordination to protect maritime security in light of the Houthi threats to international shipping traffic in the waterways off the coast of Yemen. A Houthi court sentenced a civil activist to death after convicting her of spying with one of the coalition countries. The ruling issued by the criminal court more than a year after the kidnapping of Fatima al-Arawi. The Houthi militia had kidnapped Fatima at the checkpoint in Tai's governorate and forcibly hid her for approximately 8 months.
Yemen, the worst famine the world has seen in 100 years. Right now, over 8 million people are facing starvation. Since the beginning of the war, 85,000 children have died due to the lack of food. We cannot allow this to continue. The Yemeni people can't wait.
The World Food Programme announced the suspension of one of its activities in areas under Houthi control due to limited funding. The program said Houthi obstacles led to failure to reach an agreement with the authorities to implement a smaller program equal to resources available. This report has more.
The United Nations Food Agency said on Tuesday it is stopping food distribution in areas of war-torn Yemen controlled by the Houthi rebels, a move that will impact millions of people. The World Food Programme said the pause was driven by limited funding and the lack of agreement with the rebel authorities on downscaling the program to match the agency's resources. World Food Programme said in a statement that this difficult decision, made in consultations with donors, comes after nearly a year of negotiations during which no agreement was reached to reduce the number of people served from 9.5 million to 6.5 million. The World Food Programme announcement came as the Houthis have unleashed attacks on ships in the Red Sea, imperiling traffic along one of the world's most vital shipping lanes critical to global trade. The Houthis support the Palestinian militant group, and the attacks are linked to the ongoing war that Israel imposed on Gaza. World Food Programme said food stocks in Houthi-controlled areas are now almost completely depleted, and resuming food assistance, even with an immediate agreement, could take up to as long as 4 months due to the disruption of the supply chain. The Rome-based UN agency said it will continue its other programs such as nutrition and school feeding projects to limit the impact of the pause in food distributions. In government-controlled areas of Yemen, World Food Programme said general food distribution will continue with a heightened focus on the most vulnerable families. At the end of October, World Food Programme and the UN Food and Agriculture Organization warned that acute food insecurity is likely to deteriorate further in Yemen through April 2024. It called for urgent and scaled-up assistance to Yemen and 17 other hunger hotspots to protect livelihoods and increase access to food.
The Houthi militia's prisons are witnessing horrific torture operations against abductees in various governorates under its control, and many abductees have died as a result of torture, according to several local and international human rights reports. This report has more.
A UN panel of experts has named top official Abdelkader al-Murtada as an abuser of inmates in Houthi detention. Al-Murtada is the head of the Houthi National Committee for Prisoners' Affairs and the militia negotiator in UN-brokered prisoner swap talks. The expert's judgment has confirmed previous claims made against Al-Murtada by former captives. The experts said that prisoners are systematically subject to torture and other forms of cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment repatriated by the prison staff. Based on the multiple reports received by the panel, various members of the prisoners' management were and still torturing the prisoners, including Abdelkader al-Murtada. They added that prisoners were subject to systematic psychological and physical torture inside al-Murtada-operated detention facility. Measures included forcing captives to stand for long periods, hitting their heads against the wall, dragging them, beating them with metal or electric wires, and banning doctors from performing life-saving surgeries on tortured prisoners. If the detainees asked for medicines, their Houthi captors sold them at excessive rates, although these had been received free from relief groups. Prisoners and their families were forced to pay high amounts to make brief phone calls or to meet, as the report said, adding that the phone calls were often allowed for the sole purpose of requesting families to transfer additional money, which is usually administered by the prison's management on behalf of each prisoner. Many former Houthi captives were freed as part of prisoner exchange deal between the Yemeni government and the militia, have said that al-Murtada personally tortured them, or that they saw him and his colleagues mistreat inmates. Citing the case of the kidnapped young Yemeni model and actor Intisar al-Hammadi, along with other women, the experts said they were subject to harsh mistreatment by their Houthi captors, with some of the women sexually assaulted and others put on trial.
Coming up in the news. Yemeni children with autism continue to suffer amid conflict. Welcome back. A UN report revealed the existence of a coordinated weapons smuggling network operating between areas controlled by the Houthi militia loyal to Iran, Somalia, and Sudan. The following report has more details.
A United Nations report revealed the existence of a weapons smuggling network operating between areas controlled by the Houthi militia, Somalia, and Sudan. The report explained that various models of small and light weapons, including portable air defense systems and anti-tank guided missiles, are offered for sale on the black market, especially in the cities of Sana'a and Sada, which are under the control of the pro-Iranian Houthi militia. The United Nations group of experts on Yemen confirmed in a report submitted to the United Nations Security Council last month that unregulated sales of small arms and light weapons contribute to their spread in the region. which may undermine peace, security, and stability in Yemen and beyond. The report explained that the nature of certain equipment, such as man-portable air defense systems, could arouse the interest of armed groups, including terrorist groups which pose a threat to civil aviation security. The team found that there were other arms transfers that were not intercepted by any relevant authorities that reached areas under the control of the Houthis. The United Nations team expressed its belief that there is a closely coordinated smuggling network operating between Yemen and Somalia and receiving weapons from a common source. The team noted that several sources have been reporting since June that the Rapid Support Forces in Sudan have possessed 3G assault rifles since mid-April, and the team reported that they are being used in the ongoing armed conflict in Sudan. They stressed that there is a closely coordinated smuggling network operating between Yemen and Sudan.
Al-Aman Association for the Care of Blind Women organized a bazaar for handmade products, which was held at Thais Tourist Club. The bazaar contained 60 projects run by women, aimed to encourage disabled women with special needs and support them to develop their skills and invest their abilities in their own projects.
Today we launched this bazaar under the auspices of Al-Aman Association for Visually Impaired Women. The bazaar was established for girls with special needs, including visual impairment, hearing impairment, and handicapped people. The bazaar was established after a long training period in supporting the girls financially to help them promote their products.
Today, we are so pleased with the opening of this bazaar on the occasion of the International Day of People with Disability, which falls on December the 3rd. On this occasion, we call on international organizations and the local authorities to give attention and more support to these people.
The number of registered refugees last October reached more than 800 new refugees. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said the number of refugees registered in Yemen during October represents the highest monthly rate since the beginning of this year. Al-Amal Center in Taiz cares for thousands of patients of autism by providing free medical, pharmaceutical, health, psychological, and social services. More is in the following report.
As Aziz receives rigorous speech treatment in this room, expert Hind rehabilitates and trains the two Saleh brothers, Nabras and Muawiyah, in the adjacent one. For these children, the Al-Amal Center for Autism Treatment in Taiz is the only center that provides assessment, diagnosis, and treatment services.
The center offers a number of services, including a diagnostic assessment upon the child's arrival. We also offer behavioral rehabilitation and cognitive skill development for children, and psychological support for parents of children with autism and disabilities.
The Al-Amal Center for Autism Treatment in Taiz is making great efforts to meet most of the needs of 160 children who have been diagnosed with autism and provide them with the necessary support. However, the center faces several challenges, the most prominent of which is the lack of necessary operational resources.
Due to the shortage of funds, we're unable to utilize various pedagogical methods. We also need to incorporate fun methods of learning for students with ADHD. As most students have no extracurricular means of entertainment, we need to craft an environment that resembles normalcy.
80% of Yemen's population lives below the poverty line due to the wars and conflicts that Yemen has been experiencing since 2015. These circumstances double the suffering of children with special needs and deprive them of care due to the inability of their families to pay for their treatment.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The United Nations says it's not possible to create safe zones in Gaza Strip. World Food Programme stops operations in 41 areas due to funding crisis and a lack of agreement with the rebel militia. United Nations panel of experts accuses a senior Houthi official of torturing prisoners. This is the end of the news. Thank you for streaming with us. It was Abir Ali.